Get started. Hey, folks, John Kelly. Welcome back to the Law Enforcement Life Coaches Sometimes Heroes Need Help podcast. I am sitting down with Eric Hofestien, and he and I have been talking, man. He is a retired Leo out of Cali, and he has just a lifetime of experience that we're going to talk about. But more importantly, he authored a book, What Doesn't Kill You, One Cop's Perspective on Homelessness, Mental Illness, and Addiction. He did a deep dive, man. And in the last probably 7 years of his career, he was dealing daily with the homeless. Can I say epidemic?
Yep.
Homeless epidemic out
Would
in
you
California.
consider 8,000 homeless people crammed into 49 square miles an epidemic?
Yeah. All right. You got me there, man. So he was dealing with this issue at the street level, boots on the ground. And we're going to talk about mental health, mental illness, homelessness, and beyond bitching about it, because bitching about it really doesn't get it done, man. We're going to propose some real world solutions, and who knows, maybe if somebody in a position of authority or power is listening, they might change their approach. So, hey, listen, I could talk and go on and on about Eric and what he's accomplished in his career. I'm going to shut up. Help me welcome Eric Hofestien to the Law Enforcement Life Coach Sometimes Heroes Need Help podcast. Eric, it's nice to finally connect, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on here.
And so a little side note, because a lot of folks from South Florida listen to the podcast. They're not doing police work, so they gotta, they got a lot of time sitting under the tree, so they'll listen to the podcast. A brother of a good friend, Adam Hofestien, and Adam's down there in District 10 doing his thing, and this is just like complete coincidence. I didn't know that you were his brother. You didn't know that I worked for Broward Sheriff's Office, and like we just uncovered all that in the first few minutes of our conversation, which is, I don't know, man, that there are a lot of people in this world, and for what do they say, 6 degrees of separation?
Yeah.
I think it's more like 3.
Yeah. It is pretty amazing.
Yeah. So first and foremost, thanks for taking the time, man. And I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.
So let's jump into it, man. You 27 years out in California, and
3 in Florida, and then
3 in Florida. 3 in Florida doesn't really count, bro. It's 3 in Florida. And then you loaded up the SUV and you headed west, young man.
Yep. Yeah. A lot cheaper going into California than going out.
Oh my God. So you spent a lot of time out in California, and give us a little bit of history, a little bit of background, Eric, and then I really want to get into the book and your deep dive into those issues surrounding homelessness, mental illness, and addiction, if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, of course. Thank you. This is part of the giving back, I started off in 93 as a reserve officer at a little gang town, Salinas, California, where Nuestra Familia kind of got its footholds, its beginnings. Blood In, Blood Out, the movie.
Okay.
About Nuestra Familia countering La M, American Me, alternate version. And it was new to me. I was from the East Coast, so it was just amazing. I grew up around mafia. That was everyday stuff, but the West Coast gangs was something I had never experienced before, and it fascinated me. So I kind of got heavily involved in that. But it was burnout, big time. I moved on to San Jose, where everybody wanted to go, but that's when the California market went crazy, where you couldn't afford a house. People were living in motorhomes in the parking lot. Some were even flying by plane back home on their days off, because you could not afford to live in the city.
You couldn't afford to live in the jurisdiction that you patrolled.
Salinas was actually the closest, most affordable place, which was about 2-hour drive away.
Oh,
so
my goodness.
You got to live next to gangbangers,
Oh.
5 generations worth as a cop, if you wanted to afford to live anywhere. And like I was telling you, I'm in a mixed marriage, so finding a place where our kids could grow up and feel comfortable, my wife could feel comfortable because she's from LA, Los Angeles.
Okay.
Um, and it was hard till we decided let's try
See,
Florida. That
everybody's got this idea that California is very liberal and all accepting, and there's no, the rest of the country is discriminatory, not California.
Oh boy. So people don't realize how big California is. Every time I mention from California, first thing they say is I've been there, and they always say San Diego. As my wife says, no one in California goes to San Diego. There's
Oh,
nothing, there's
goodness.
nothing there. That
Okay.
Southern California is as different from Northern California as
It should
Maine
be
is from
multiple
Texas.
states. It should be more than one
They've talked
state.
about it. They've always talked about
Right. I mean,
it.
it's huge.
But there's issues with water and
Yeah.
other resources, and it never gets done. But it's from San Francisco to LA is an 8 hour drive,
It almost encompasses the entire West Coast.
pretty much. It is basically because Oregon is small
Right.
and Washington is not very big. I've been up to both of those states. So you basically have the entire coastline. If you think about Maine to Florida,
Right.
all of those states are
That
cut
would be
down to
as
three.
like, I know that's insane.
So it's the politics are very different. The geography, when you go to Orange County, it is full of white supremacists. The Nazi lowriders got their start there. I hated Southern California.
Hmm.
Northern California is the redwoods. Adam loves and misses the Northern California. That's the John Muir Woods. That's where
Okay.
you're getting up with Bigfoot. The
All
legend of
those
Bigfoot was
trails,
all up in
those
there.
I just had a girl on the show, Angela Porter. She attempted the JMT,
JMT.
the
The
John Mayer
oh
trail. I guess it's a big
yeah,
hiking trail.
yeah. Well, now it's a 1 year wait. A one
Holy
year wait.
smokes.
Yeah, we used to
Okay.
just go. Adam used to jump in the car with us, and we would just go. And now all of a sudden, it's a 1 year wait to get in. It's so overcrowded
Oh my
and
goodness.
packed. So it's extremely expensive, but it's beautiful, and that's why it has
Okay.
more millionaires than any other place in the world. Highest concentration, and I heard recently billionaires too.
Oh wow.
So because you have San Jose, and this is where BART, where I ended up working for BART, the transit system stretches through all of these. Silicon Valley,
Yep.
San Jose PD, where I worked briefly, and then you have Oakland, where the birth of the Black Panther Party,
Nice.
Huey, yeah, the whole history behind that, and then across the bay is San Francisco,
Okay.
and then you get across from there, and you're getting into Napa and wine country, where people take the wine country tours.
Sure. Okay.
It's all incredibly beautiful, but incredibly expensive.
Okay.
And that's why I decided, what, California is about 10% tax. I'm going to lose 10% of my retirement. So when I retire, came out here to Georgia,
Okay.
where I got half the money back from the taxation.
Great. Great. So when you're out in California, um, finding a place to live and work close enough to where you were working was problematic, to say the least.
Yeah. Most people either had family who happened to have a place, or they lived in tiny cramped apartments, or they traveled great distances. And that's where in the early 90s, we were looking at places that were an hour, 2 hours away. And they were kind of rural, rednecky, gangbanger areas. And my wife was like, nope, no way.
Yeah, no,
We're not
that's
raising the
tough.
kids. So yeah, you go to school and there you have Norteños and Sureños and their families picking the kids up, hanging out, and there's getting your kid, and everybody knows you're a cop. There's no way we would go out river rafting. We actually met Danny DeVito up there river rafting at the same time. They dumped all his stuff. It was kind of funny. He was pissed. They overturned his boat, but
Yeah.
there's gangbangers all the way up there. You're 8 hours out into the wilderness where the legend of Bigfoot started, and
Mm.
there's gangbangers busting off rounds up there because it's everywhere. It's not like the East Coast where you know your bad areas, you have your good areas. California, they are everywhere. You
Ooh,
cannot escape it.
geez, this sounds like a bad movie.
Yeah, well, they made a few.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. No, I just listen, I know I don't know, Eric, and so I've never been to California, and it's sounding like there's no need for me to go there.
It's beautiful to visit. You just have to know what you're visiting and where you're staying.
Yeah. Mm,
You don't
yeah.
stay in Oakland. That's where they're ripping cars right in the middle of traffic intersections.
Yeah.
Um, you there's old touristy areas. It reminds me a lot of New York, San Francisco.
Okay.
It's very, very similar in that city, but it's older. It's got the Victorian homes, and it's beautiful to see. It's just good luck trying to live there and
Oh,
raise a family there.
so either you need to be a multimillionaire to live in a decent area. The middle class, you're kind of like you're stuck.
Yeah. Well, that's why people hear how much California cops make, and they're amazed. But you're barely cutting it. 120,000 a year average base pay is not unheard of. It's not a shocker.
Right.
But if you have to work tremendous amounts of overtime, unless your spouse has a good paying job just to make ends meet.
Wow.
And my wife was staying at home,
Hmm.
so we were living off of just my income, and I was spending. At one point, I worked 3 months straight with one day off, just to cover the basics and
Yeah.
do the things I want to do. But I had no time to do those things with my kids, and now in retirement, I'm paying a
Yeah.
price for that.
Right. No doubt. That's crazy. So you had this career. It had its challenges. Um,
Do
Go
you
ahead.
remember Lieutenant Charla?
Of course.
Charla, when he's not beating my head in on Sunday boxing,
Oh
used
my
to
goodness.
say when he would see me,
You
he
fell
always
victim to that.
he's
See,
always he's always calling me. He's always
see,
so and
I blame you, sir. See, because Steve would call me all the time. Cal, come on out to Mullins Park. Let's do so. I go, what do I look like? What? So I can be your punching bag
yeah.
for the morning? I go, no, I'm not gonna. What? So you can cave my ribs in? I go, not happening.
So I brought him up because he always, whenever he sees me, first words out of his mouth, Hofstien. My favorite uh, punching bag design is the Hofstien head.
Oh
But
my God.
I
Yeah.
want to know how are things in the great communist state of California?
Oh my God. Yeah, no, that's him. Exactly. I haven't talked to him in a little bit, but yeah, no, he's a great guy and he's still getting after it, believe it or not.
Yes, the great shape
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
smart as a whip, and
Yep.
yeah,
Good
and
people.
still loves his gifts.
Yep.
Bring him little gifts, and bring him his
Yeah.
juice. He doesn't get his juice, he gets cranky.
Yeah, no. It's like a little kid. Um good people, man. Good people. So listen, dude, we could do multiple episodes on your career. I want to talk about your time when you transitioned to the transportation. Is it Transportation Authority?
So it's very different than how the East Coast does it. In California, you have the statutes that basically authorize police powers. 836 of the Penal Code is what qualifies officers to be police officers, have police powers.
Okay.
Transit, Bay Area Rapid Transit specifically has its own statute that was written just for the department that I worked at. It was
Okay.
like 832.33 or something. I actually wrote about it a little bit in the book because you're not 836. So cops use that as a defining language of I'm 836 or I'm not 836 PC, because you have Amtrak has its own police, and then there's CHP. There's different agencies, and they have to have their authorizations to
There's
do their
just
police
not one,
powers.
there's just not one certifying body across the state.
Just the 836 if it qualifies, but you have these specialized agencies that um, have to, like BART, that have to have their own because you're not doing traditional police work.
Okay.
That was one of the reasons why. So I was at Contra Costa Sheriff's Office. I worked 5 years in the jail. The rest of the time, about 6 years on patrol, uh, from gang-ridden areas up to the Valley, which is upper class communities, Alamo, multi-million-dollar homes. And when I realized, I wrote about this in the book, the reasons why. I won't go down that rabbit hole here, but I realized it was time to punch out. Things had been changing for me mentally,
Right.
my mental health and emotional health. I had witnessed an officer shot, killed, and that was the straw. And I thought, why not go to transit? I know, I grew up in the New York subway systems, and I remember, what's the worst that can happen? You basically,
How bad could it be?
yeah, there's trains. I'm not going into homes. I'm not digging, because in California, when you're a deputy, you're also a deputy coroner. So you have to investigate all deaths. So I hated it. I'm not going
Okay.
to go in and pull out bloated bodies anymore.
So
I'm not going to be a domestic.
let me cut you off, Eric. So there is the deputies are responsible for doing that?
Yeah, the sheriff's departments are responsible for the jails first over patrol, which is why some sheriff's departments don't even have patrol units.
Huh.
Uh, it's secondary. I worked at one that did have both, and we had contract cities the way Broward did,
Okay.
but they're also coroners because it's such huge areas you cover. Deputy coroners.
Oh wow. So you got all that training, and after you got all that training, you were tasked with basically being a coroner.
If
Up
there was an
to the
unattended death, all unattended deaths.
yeah. Okay.
So an attended death is in a hospital, in a hospice, where,
Physician's gonna
yeah,
sign. Yeah.
where the doctor says, "No surprise, we were waiting for this," kind of
Right,
thing.
right, right.
So
But
unattended deaths have to be investigated by the coroner's office, and
sure.
we were deputy coroners, so we had extra training, but it was disgusting. It was gross. I mean, you
Yeah,
had to,
no.
hey, we found something hanging in the, literally, I had one hanging in the woods for a year
There
from
you
a
go.
tree before somebody found them. I had to go and investigate that and
There you
take
go.
pictures. And yeah, no, I know I work with, I
Rock
don't
on.
get it. I'm sure you work with guys who are like, traffic is the greatest thing in police
Yeah,
work.
no, no. Like
Coroner's
I
office is the
was,
greatest.
yeah, I was a motor sergeant, not because I had a traffic background. I liked riding a Harley. Like that was, jokes on you. Yeah, no tickets from John. I'm gonna ride a bike all day. But
Well,
no way.
sheriff's offices also don't usually do traffic in California.
Really?
Yeah, so that's handled by CHP. CHP is responsible for the roadways and highways. So the great part was, hey, I don't have to do traffic, which
Okay.
I hate
Right.
unless you're in a contract city. But on the other end, we had the coroner
Right.
stuff.
So you had some crazy assignments. You went through a tough run after seeing witnessing a fellow Leo get killed, and you're like, time to switch gears, man. I'm out. I need to do something different. And you thought, is it BART? It's called.
Yeah, Bay Area Rapid Transit.
You thought BART was going to be like, all right, this is going to be a good change. It'll keep me in the game, but I won't be exposed to all the things that I've been exposed to, and this will hopefully help me in my own healing and moving forward. Is that accurate?
That, and the only thing you missed was the money is outstanding.
Really?
They're
Okay.
wealthy. Oh yeah, the pay was six figures. It was very high. I think it was our base pay starting was somewhere around the 110s or 115 or something. But with the overtime, and you had double time. If you came back for a second shift, anything after your first shift of overtime was double time.
Hmm.
So that pay at double time, people were making ungodly amounts of money. And I thought, okay, great. So
Right.
all the benefits, the pay, I pad my retirement for that 3% at 50. I managed to get that. I don't know what Florida it generally is, but California, it was common to have 3% at 50. You can retire. So I knew I could pull the plug and I could just keep padding 3% of my pay year after year.
Okay.
It was a win-win.
Yeah, yeah,
Back
yeah. We got a 3% multiplier from day one.
from day. Okay, you
Yeah.
got Broward
So
got that.
yeah, we've always yeah. So basically, for every year, you get 3%.
You guys
Um,
were lucky. That was hard to come by in Florida.
Yeah. So you're at 25 years, you're at 75% of your not just your base, but of your base overtime and detail.
Did they calculate it based on an average of 3 years or
No,
your
it was
highest year,
your highest five.
your highest five?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a little bit different than, yeah,
Yeah, but
usually,
they allowed you to use, they allowed your overtime and details to be part of that calculation.
oh,
Yeah,
really?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So for as screwed up as Florida is,
So
they
that's why the port was so popular.
why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be? Holy smokes. So you get on with Bart because it seems like financially it's going to help address a lot of the issues of being in California with the high cost of everything. You're now you getting a nice substantial raise, and you go into the BART department, and and talk to me about that, man. What was that like?
Well, transit is very different in a lot of ways with police work in general. And the first thing I noticed was, I mean, well, the first thing I noticed was things I expected, such as large crowds, head on a swivel. Generally, in police work, we avoid crowds,
Right,
like, oh, look, a lot of people over there. I'm going to go park my car over here.
right,
Can't do
yeah.
that. You got to literally walk into the middle of what was 450,000 commuters per day was the average when it
So
was at its peak.
so paint a picture for me, if you would, Eric. I've never been to California. It, they, do they have a subway system similar to like New York or Boston, or is it all
It's
above ground?
it depends which county. They cover now 6 counties, so 50 cities. Some are above ground, so I was able to commute for free, having worked for BART. And cops were supposed to in general, but there was problems with that, of course,
Yeah.
because everybody hates cops. Um, they had above ground where I lived. When you got to the city, it all went underground. When you went through the Transbay Tube, which is about 15 minutes of under the bay from
Okay.
between Oakland and San Francisco, it's also a high risk spot for terrorism watch, and it's pretty famous out there, that Transbay Tube. It stays underground until you start getting back out into the nether regions of the end of the system. The airport, if you travel to San Francisco Airport and Oakland, BART connects to those. Those are above ground, and one station could be really pretty, and then you get into like, New York was similar.
And do you
Some
have
areas are
like
bad.
assignments where you're like riding the trains or you're at the stations and stuff like that?
Yeah, they split it up um, by zones, similar to when I was in Palm Beach. I was District 7, which is down there in Boca Raton. Um, they had zones that they would break it up into, and you were responsible to work your zone, your district. And they
Okay.
gave you generally about 3 stations that you had to cover. Yeah, if they had parking lots, you had the parking lots. You had the stations themselves, and this is the big fight, whether to ride trains, because here's the problem. You go ride on a train because the commuters are complaining. We never see a cop. Great. You see me now as the doors close and the train goes to the next stop, a robbery breaks out where you just left. So guess
Yeah.
what? You got to wait for your train to arrive, doors to open, catch a train going back, and
Yeah. Yeah.
then conduct your investigation.
Right. Right. That's
So,
a little, so staffing also becomes an issue. So you're singly, you're responsible for like three stations.
well, except for zone 4 where I was at. So I put myself in San Francisco, which was for safety 2-man teams.
Okay.
So it was like the old flatfoots of New York.
Okay.
We walked. We averaged about 5 to 10 miles a day on foot with all that gear on, which I'm paying for now
Yeah.
physically. And you walked from the station. We used to love walking above ground just to get fresh air, and walk through the city. You walk through San Francisco,
Okay.
through the stations,
And you just
and
go to the next station, go down, maybe check
yeah,
the platform, pop back up, go to the next one.
yep,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
Or you get to the end
What's
of
the
it,
matter,
and then you
Eric?
take the trains
You
back.
didn't love the smell of piss and feces?
Oh, I got used to it.
Oh
That started
God.
smelling like money after a
Oh my
while.
God.
Oh, they
Listen.
would do it right in front of you. They would
Yeah,
do it right.
no,
They,
it's
they
people
would
have
just
no
drop.
idea. I took my daughter for the first time years ago, when we still went to New York, when it was still safe. We got on the train. We got on the subway. She'd never been on a subway before. And you want to see somebody with their eyes wide open and like they're like, what the I go, yeah, this is a whole people live like this. This is, this is real. This isn't a movie that's been sanitized for
But it feels
your
like it.
oh my
With
god.
all your senses, you can
Oh
smell it.
Lord. Yeah,
You
man.
know that book, Everything I Learned in Life, I Learned in Kindergarten?
Oh my god.
I always joke with the family that everything I learned in life, I learned in the New York subway.
Yeah, no,
Like,
it's
what is that guy doing?
a
Oh my God.
lot going on, man. Not all
It's
not a lot of violin playing going on those platforms, man.
no. Actually, I learned there was a reason behind why it's so bad, because when you lose your license, or you're homeless, or you don't have a car because it was towed by the police for
Right.
DUIs, where do you go to get around?
Yeah.
Subway. So
Right.
people with mental health disorders, people who can't get driver's licenses, criminals who
Yeah.
don't want to get that car stop and have their trunk searched, they throw it in a bag and they hop on a train.
That's a perfect way to get around without being stopped or
I
having the prying eyes of law enforcement.
So the fentanyl crisis is hitting hard, and I used to talk to the fentanyl dealers. They're Hondurans. A lot of them were kids.
A
Some were actually juveniles.
lot of cartels, right?
Well, it all comes from the cartel, but drug the drug world is very similar to any other business. The low level guys, these Honduran, they're kids. They're homeless kids basically, who are making $5 selling to prostitutes and other drug addicts. They're not making a whole lot of money.
Right.
When you move up the chain, that's where the money is. You don't
Sure.
see those people. Those
No.
people are living in the nice areas.
Sure, of course.
So I would sit and I would talk to, nothing else to do. I would talk to them. They would tell me. They were
Yeah.
actually a lot of them were very friendly and honest. So you reminded me of how at the end of the day, they would take Bart back home. They all lived in the same house that their boss would rent for them in Oakland. And at the end of the day, my shift's over, their shift's over Bugs Bunny with
Yeah,
punching
yeah.
out with
Yeah, that's exactly what it would seem like.
it
That's
was it,
hysterical.
I would sit there, they would recognize me. Hey, what's up, man?
What's up?
Oh yeah, your boy got jacked. What happened?
Yeah.
Oh man, this they go
Right.
their way, they wave bye to me on the train.
See you tomorrow.
Yeah, see you at
Yeah.
work tomorrow.
Oh my
I'm not
God.
kidding.
No,
It
I
was
believe it. I believe it. This,
Well, because one of them put it this way. One of them told me he was missing three fingers from working the cane fields. He
okay.
said, "Hey, look, I made $7 a day working the cane fields in Honduras. Here, I make $700 a day, and God hates me, but my family, they had a family
Yeah.
all living in
Right.
one little hut
Right.
somewhere. What do you? I'm not condoning it, but
No, and listen,
in his position, it's
listen,
like,
what's a no-brainer? You see, this is the thing. People judge people never having walked 2 seconds in their shoes. Right. And so we apply our moral compass and value system to somebody. We look down on them. How could they do that? Listen, um, if it comes down to what I need to do to provide for my family and put food and shelter for my wife and daughter, you'll be amazed at the things that I'm capable of.
yep, you just hit it. And one day, one of them came to me because I was doing my outreach, and my reputation made its way around the Tenderloin and the inner city areas, and it said, "Hey, you help a lot of people. Could you help me get work?" Because he didn't want to sell dope. He just
Okay.
wanted money for his family.
Right.
Next thing I know, I'm calling the Honduran consulate in LA, because he needs ID. In order to work, you have to have ID.
Okay.
He wanted ID. Next thing I know, I have a crowd, huge crowd surrounds me, all Hondurans. I don't even know where they came from. I just look up and all of a sudden
Right.
I'm surrounded. They're all listening in, ear hustling, because they want to see if I can get him ID so that he can get work, because the rest of them, like, work, we have a way.
Right.
So it's like, if you give legitimate work, they were more than happy to
How
not
about
sell
that?
dope.
How about that?
So
Hey,
when you
so
say don't give them ID,
we got way ahead of like so you're working the transit and you are it's a different animal altogether, right? It's not really, I don't want to say it's not law enforcement because that's not true, but there's a different take, right? There's a different
It's a different
perspective.
spin. So when you work a beat,
Talk to me about that.
you get to know your beat. Okay. So even when you work a dangerous area, there's a level of comfort that you have, because I work some pretty bad areas.
Sure.
I mean, and officers shot, officers killed, and you kind of get a feel for when the crickets aren't making noise,
Right.
like something's up.
Yeah. I need
Flock,
not, I need not to be here right now.
Tukey is feuding with Flacco over there,
Yeah.
and nobody's hanging outside. Something bad is coming.
Yeah.
There's going to be a
Yeah.
drive-by. But when you're working in transit, you don't see the same people. You don't see that neighborhood, those homes. When that train door opens, you have no idea what's stepping out. You don't know
Right.
if it's some guy who's on a murder spree, cross-country murder spree, who was coming to San Francisco to get his last bit of
Yeah.
freedom, going out in style,
Right.
which we would get, or just some, like you said, some drug dealer with a bag full of dope and guns on him, who's going to go deliver to his Honduran boys up there in San Francisco. And somebody called because he was acting weird. You
Right.
just you don't know what you're going to get, and then you're overstimulated with thousands of people crammed onto a platform. One train car can hold up to about 100 people, and you have 10 car trains, and they call it crush load. So you can get, all of a sudden the train pulls up, 1,000 people just come pouring out in
Off.
front of you. And if you're talking to somebody or you're trying to find something, all of a sudden you're surrounded by hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are running up to you because they see the uniform and whatever's,
I have a
police work.
question, or I have
Yeah,
so
this is
and
more
how do
important than
you,
what you're
yeah,
doing.
like how do you, and just so listen, I want, strong Leo listenership. All right. So remember the guys and gals driving around listening to this conversation. Like, remember when you get out of the car on your one call and two people come up to you and you start feeling overwhelmed because two people are talking to you with nobody else around and you don't want them to get too close to you? Um, Eric's on a platform, and the 100 people that are in that car are exiting, and you don't have an option to get distance or, separate, or you just deal.
The
You
worst
just
part is when you get into a fight. The train door opens and you see the train pulling up and you see the dude swinging a bat at people or doing something
right.
crazy. Door opens and it's like ding, literally like a bell, because you have
Yeah.
the sound of the door ding, fights on. And now
Yeah.
you got 1,000 witnesses. Most of them hate you, even though they just called on that guy.
Right. Right.
So you have the ones yelling, I want him arrested. I want him arrested. They're yelling, shut up, snitch. So you
Yeah.
got this going on in the background. You got hostile people surrounding. You're always supposed to put yourself in a position of safety.
It's
There
almost
is no position of
impossible.
safety. And if
Yeah.
you get caught on the train at that Transbay 2, so the train is going towards Oakland, you get to the last Embarcadero Center, the last San Francisco train stop, and you don't get off, you are now fighting all the way across the bay to the next county, Oakland. Well, it's Alameda County, but Oakland. So that's like a 15-minute ride on a train. You ain't getting back up. The train can't stop. You are basically flying through a tube,
Yeah,
hanging on.
which brings me to your martial arts background.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, listen, the shit that they taught you in the academy wasn't going to cut
Oh
it.
my God.
No, listen, that's not, hey, if you don't ever have to fight anybody the rest of your career, that's great. The stuff they showed you in the academy will work just great. But
the stuff they
goddamn,
show you, in the academy was based on old world tactics where you could smack somebody with a 12-cell mag light,
yeah,
and everybody was good with that.
yeah,
Now you so much as poke someone in the chest,
yeah,
and they're calling it battery from an officer on a.
right. So you have an extensive background in BJJ and mixed martial arts and Muay Thai, and these these are skill sets that I'm sure kept you safe, and
kept me out of IA.
allowed you to be here talking to us now, I'm sure.
I mean, the fighting is one thing. It always ends up being a grappling match anyway. but it even kept me out of IA. I had one guy who was swinging blows at me on the platform. It was a suspicious person who was punching people, acting out, a lot of mental health issues.
Yeah.
And when I contacted him, he's throwing blows at me, just swinging. Everything was a grappling match. And when I get him on the ground, I'm controlling him. I'm tapping him on his side. Hey, put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind. Not a single punch did I throw. The Office of the Independent Auditor, they watch all use of force, and
I would imagine all those platforms and trains are videotaped, are they not?
everything.
Okay, yeah.
And
Were you wearing a body worn camera as well?
yep. And
Okay,
because you had to, because
okay.
everybody else had, you have 1,000 witnesses, all
Yeah.
with phones up in the air.
Yeah,
Hey, what is going on?
you need your
I am literally,
perspective.
I think I'm still on YouTube. I think there was videos of me on YouTube. So everything is being recorded
Okay,
by
good.
everybody.
Right.
And um, the independent auditor, who was, the union hated him. They thought he was always going after cops. He actually complimented me.
Yeah,
That was amazing. I want to tell you that was really great. I loved your control, your use of force. It was all jujitsu.
sure.
Or if you wrestle, wrestling.
Right. Yeah, no, that's there are skill sets that, listen, there's nothing better. Listen, nobody wants to go to the ground, but if that's where it's gonna go more often than not, then be proficient on the ground, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's
At
great to
least
have
know what to do.
yeah,
Know where you're disadvantaged.
and not panic and continue to breathe and have an idea on how to dominate somebody and get them secured quickly. We're not looking to tap anybody. We just want to get them cuffed.
And the ground and pound. I'm not a believer. I have never in my life seen a suspect give up because he was punched.
Yeah,
I've been punched. You get in the
yeah.
ring, the first thing you learn is, if you have that mindset, punching is not going to do anything to you
No,
unless you get knocked out. I mean,
no.
look at Charlotte. I
Exactly.
mean, you,
Yeah.
you have those big meat fists coming
You
at
got
you.
two like those, those Halloween Hulk fists that
Yes,
kids wear.
yes,
That's
we
like
had them. We
him.
had a pair.
Yeah, that's him.
That's
Without no Halloween, he's just got these monster mitts
he always
that
kisses them. He goes like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, so your martial arts background served you really well during those years. So talk to me about why what doesn't kill you, one cop's perspective on homelessness, mental illness, and addiction. Why that, and why this passion for outreach and this community? Talk to me about the problem objectively and your real world boots on the ground solution and what you were doing that was impacting. And then let's, we'll talk a little bit more about the book. But because listen, I think I told you this before we started recording. My answer to homelessness was throwing someone in the back seat of my car and taking them to East Fort Lauderdale and dumping them off in Fort Lauderdale's jurisdiction, the old Hobo Express. That's how I dealt with homeless people in my district. Not very empathetic, not I wasn't addressing a problem. I was pushing a problem away from my area of responsibility. And that doesn't work. And so what are some things that you noticed that were the issues, and what are some of the things that some innovative things that you did that made you that guy in that area?
yeah, I mean, what you're talking about, many cops, if not most, are familiar with. I think it was the state of Arizona or Nevada that got caught doing this. The entire state got in trouble, penalized for sending homeless people with mental health issues to California, one-way
Right.
tickets on the bus. Um, and the excuse, which is why there's so many in California, is California has more services. I would
Ah,
talk to kids. Most of the people I dealt with were from other states. And one girl from Utah told me how they don't even consider a mental illness or addiction a mental illness. So there were no services available for her mental health issues, because she was just a addict, is how they would see her out there. In California, she got services. So it draws them in and it overwhelms the system. For me, it's hard to explain here. That's kind of what the book starts off with some police work, police procedural style story
Yeah.
of some of the stuff I went through as a cop. It's cop to cop kind of writing,
Yeah.
and it explains the path that I went down. Um, but the bottom line is, at some point, subconsciously, I remember challenging myself. Why am I doing this? I got into police work to help people. If I say I'm going to help people, these are people who need help, and they're causing problems. I'm having to deal with them anyway because we all shift long. You get called on homeless people and mentally ill people, addicts shooting up right in the middle of hallways in front of kids and schools walking by.
Right.
It was there in front of me. I had to deal with it. So why not help these people? And I tried to apply, as I was telling you earlier, my law enforcement investigative skills. Okay, I'm a trained investigator. I'm trained to be objective and not let my own ideologies get in the way. I hate this guy, but I have to treat him fairly when I arrest him. That type of mentality I brought to address the problem. I want to find out, I'm going to look at this like any other case, like a Colombo case. Why are
Sure.
people homeless? Why are they addicts? Why do they shoot up in hallways? Why are there thousands of them, 8,000 crammed into 49 square miles? In LA, it's 44,000. In Seattle, when I went up for some training, it was 10 to 15,000. So that's an entire city of people. Um, I started digging into it and I started connecting with some of them. And one of them was a nuclear scientist eating out of the trash. And my cop instincts, my curiosity, one of our sheriffs called it professional curiosity. My professional curiosity kicked in. What kind of life did this guy live that he inspected nuclear reactors and has money saved up from it? And he eats out of the trash and lives on a BART floor, clipping the edges off dollar bills and sewing clothing over and over. He's Farsi from Iran. I met the book I talk about, Miska, 4 letters in a Ivy League school, highly educated, highly trained, traveled the world, worked for a nonprofit, lost her mind and was living homeless. Girl from Japan, parents couldn't get her to go back home to Japan, watched her with binoculars because she beat the hell out of the mother. 5 years in the streets. We got her back to Japan eventually.
Mm.
But I'm wondering, why is this system that gets $2 billion to spend not stopping something so simple? I get not fixing it or ending it. So I really started digging in. And when you start meeting these people and you talk to them and you learn about their lives, you see this backstory, this aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I learned is that addiction is rooted in pain. It's pain response.
Right.
Drugs themselves don't make you an addict. Or everyone who's had surgery, who's had fentanyl, which is given to you in the hospitals, and other opiates, we would all be addicts. I've
Sure.
had opiate pills, but I'm not an addict. Why did I take opiates and I'm fine? Because there's a reason behind the self-medication that they do. And when I worked with them, I learned that most of them got disconnected from their families. It's kind of similar to the story, the old trope of the kid who wants to experience the world and grew up in Ohio, and they go off, screw you, dad, I'm going to go and see the world, and I want
Right.
to do what I want to smoke
And gonna
pot.
get out of this small town.
And he's like, I'm going to ground you and you're going to stay in your room and do your homework. Now the kid's on the street. I had one girl who was 16 years. She left when she was 14 years old, ran away, asking me to find her mother. She had completely changed. Wasn't that rebellious kid saying, man, I realize now just having a roof over your head, boy, did I take that for granted
Mm-hmm.
when I wanted to get out of the house so badly. And then you have the parents who are saying, man, I just pushed too hard. I thought I
Yeah.
could just be strict and just kind of protect them from the world, and I didn't give them enough leeway. And this is you asked about the epiphany. What did I
Yeah.
learn? What did I do that was different? I started calling the families.
Huh.
Every single person. I was working with 27 families by the time I was done. And it was the same thing every time. Thank God for calling me. I don't know if they're alive. I don't know if they're dead. I have no, who do I call? What do I
Right.
call? My kid is homeless on the street and addicted to drugs. They were maybe raped. They were maybe beaten. One girl who grew up in a cult, in a sex cult,
Hmm.
and was incredibly abused. And family who did care, uh, they don't know what to do. And then here's the insidious part: when your child turns 18, the system no longer sees them as your child. All of a sudden, HIPAA kicks in. So who knows them better than anybody? Who cares the most?
You can't
Yet,
get any information on them.
nope. Try calling a resource center. Try calling a
Call the
clinic.
hospital. They can't divulge
We're
anything.
not going to tell you if they're here. And they could be completely out of their mind. They might need their meds. They might, and you have the history. So California has a AB 1424, which was supposed to allow families to get around HIPAA and provide information on on medical history, mental health history to caretakers, providers, without fear of HIPAA.
Right.
But it doesn't mean they're going to accept it. It doesn't mean they're going to share, and they don't.
Right.
And one of the other things I discovered was conditions like schizophrenia.
Hmm.
I have a daughter who has schizophrenia, and schizophrenia does not show. It doesn't appear till about late 20s, early 30s for girls, a little earlier for boys. So your kid turns into an adult at 18, it may still be a few years before you realize they have schizophrenia. Now all of a sudden they're acting strangely, they're doing strange things.
And you've got no
You
legal
got
power over
nothing you
them.
could, and they say, don't
Yeah.
call my parents. I want to do drugs because the drugs make my schizophrenia better. And there's nothing you can
Mm.
do.
Eric, when you were out there interacting with folks, um, dispel for our listeners, if you would, some common stereotypes of the homeless, mentally ill population. Um, some things, some misnomers, some what are some things that people believe that based on your experience in dealing with this community is are false?
Um, I was dealing with my own prejudices, which I wrote about a little bit. It was basically I had to grow a lot of self
And if they
discovery.
were your prejudices, they're probably mine, right?
Yeah, it was because I used to yell at them. I caught these two kids shooting heroin on the stairs in the middle of the day with commuters walking past, kids walking past, young kids, really young, like they must have been late teens. And I yelled at them, get the fuck out of here, doing that shit in front of kids. What's wrong with you? Um, and I might have even said scumbag. I don't know. my New
Oh
Yorker,
wow.
my New Yorker came out,
Jeez. Yeah,
hit
yeah.
me because there were little kids, and
Yeah.
he goes up the stairs crying, and he comes back down, and he says, I wasn't always a piece of shit, and it hit me.
Wow.
It
That's a moment, man. That's a
um
moment, right?
he
I
was
wasn't
part of a
always a
he
piece of
well,
shit.
he was part of a crowd where one of the ones in his crowd, his brother was a federal prosecutor at the Ninth Circuit Court upstairs, which is right. You probably see it on if you look at the news and you see homelessness in San Francisco. They're always showing Civic Center and the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, very liberal court, and he was part of that group right there. And one of those prosecuting attorneys, federal prosecutors, his brother was a horrible fentanyl and heroin addict in that same crowd. He would pass every day going to work.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, and exactly what I said. And I said, man, you know what? What is going on here? And then the girl who ran away from home. And then I ran across a case where I had a ID fraud. I wrote about this in the book, this story a little bit to give a happy part to the book because this is just miserable.
Yeah, no doubt.
Um,
No doubt.
this girl grew up in an abusive home, left her 7-year-old child behind, and was living on the streets. hadn't talked to her family in half a year. Um, she used her sister's ID to get out of a citation in BART, and I took the case for my coworkers, my peers who were on lunch break, and cops. Oh, you want to take a call for me? That's
Yeah,
we
thank
freaking
you.
love you. And a
Yeah.
report? You're gonna write my report?
Ooh,
And
superstar.
so there was no argument over that.
Yeah,
So I
superstar.
took it
Thank you.
because I was thinking, okay, I'm going to challenge myself. If I'm saying I'm here to help people, I'm going to put my mouth where the money is. I'm going to take this case and see what this story is,
Right.
even though it means more work.
Right. God forbid.
And I called the sister, and she was crying her eyes out over what happened. She was mad at first,
Right.
but she really truly missed her sister. And the fact that her sister was not around for her son, who was now 7 years old and missed mommy, and they were raising the child without her. So I was able to actually, with the help of one of the drug dealers, find out where she was at. He knew her, and he got her to come find me because everybody trusted me. So I had built such a rapport that I would always tell them, I'm going to warn you if my cop hat's on. If my cop hat's on, all bets are off. If I got to
Right.
arrest you, I got to arrest
Yeah.
you.
Right.
It's just, that's just the game, man. And they understood that.
Right.
I tell them my cop hat is off. They
Yeah.
knew they would be standing there in front of me with stolen property to
They
go
could
buy their
tell you.
drugs.
Yeah, they could
But
talk
I'm
to you.
like, I'm not here for that. Okay.
Right.
I'm here because I'm looking for this girl, because there's a 7-year-old little boy out there who misses mommy, who's on the streets. And the girls are all raped, 100% of them,
Yeah.
usually multiple times. So mommy's out there being brutalized. And with women, they internalize that guilt and that shame. And once they're caught up in that world, that's how the sex traffickers work. By debasing them so badly, they lose their sense of worth, and they're like, I'm not a mother anymore. I'm not a worthy human being. No one will ever marry me.
Right.
What could I, I'm just poison for my child. So
Huh.
I found her. I actually got pictures of it, and I reunited her with her son on the phone.
Oh, wow.
That was enough to give her the self-esteem. It's all she needed, was the self-esteem that she was worthy as a
Right.
mother. She went and got Suboxone on her own. I set her up with an appointment. She did it. She got into the program that I represented, did everything. The last time I saw her, she was on her way to an appointment, well dressed, clean, sober, and she was talking about job interviews at, I think, Target stores or something,
Okay.
and was
Excellent.
working on getting custody of her son back, who talked to her every night.
Right. So Eric, so what's it? So this is what I'm hearing. What we've been doing at an institutional level has not been working. If anything, the homeless population has grown exponentially over the last 10 or 15 years. True or false?
True.
Okay. So what we've been doing has not been working. Is it because that in order for this to work, people have to care?
Yes. And they have, but the big thing is when you have empathy, it's kind of the theme of the book. Empathy means understanding, as you said, walking in that person's shoes. If you can't see their world the way they see it, that woman I reunited with her son, she called it
Right.
the bell jar effect, where it's a famous book. She says, imagine waking up every day not knowing what time it is, what day it is, what month it is, completely disconnected from the world and everybody around you. You just float like you're in a purgatory. And if you don't understand what it's like to live like that, to be caught in that cycle of shame, guilt, and if you have mental health disorders, the brain is the only organ in the body that's discriminated against when it's sick.
Hmm.
If the kidneys are sick, you don't
That's
say, stop
that.
acting like a cancer patient, stop
That
acting like
say
a
that,
kidney patient.
Eric. Say that again.
That the brain is the only organ in the body that's discriminated against, and we hold people accountable for it being sick.
Hmm.
If the brain is sick, if the chemical imbalance, we say, suck it up, buttercup, fix yourself, get into a program. We don't look at a cancer patient and say, you act like a cancer patient, you need to
Yeah.
fix yourself. And when I started understanding this, and I got into that pit with them, and I felt what they felt, I saw what they saw, they started coming out of it. They needed, that's so, to answer your question, to not go down another rabbit hole, We need to not have a one size fits all. Some people need to go to jail. That's the bottom line. That's where my caseworkers and the programs I work with refuse to accept that. Now, that motherfucker there needs to go to jail. And caseworkers came up to me and said, one guy said, I did 15 years in prison. And if it wasn't for prison, I wouldn't be here shaking your hand. Thank you for saying that.
Right.
Some people need jail. Some people, I'm getting text messages now from, there's a case in the book I talk about. I think I called him Will. He's texting me now. He was the worst heroin addict of all of them. We would find him literally half dead in wheelchairs, drooling on himself, not breathing in elevators or propped on the floor. He's now working as a security guard, got promoted, getting custody of his kid back, and he needed jail. We got him into programs. He was in the hospital for months, came out, went right back to drugs. Jail fixed him. He admits it.
And so that takes caring. It takes time. There is no mass herding. All right, scoop all these people up and put them here.
Right.
We need to do the detective work to find out what it is that person needs or doesn't need to get them back on track. It's caring on a whole different level.
Brother, everything you just said word for word is literally what that's it. The answer is not complicated. We think it is because no one has the answer. No, the answer is people can't get out of their own way. It's literally what you just said. If I took that girl with the 7-year-old boy and put her in jail, her cycle of shame and guilt, I'm worthless. I deserve to
that
be
would
in jail.
Continue. Yeah, it would continue.
But the kid he needed that break. He needed to say,
right.
I'm sick of going to jail. I'm done with living.
Yeah, and some people might need to be institutionalized. I don't know.
Yes.
If they're a threat to society and they're fucking throwing people in front of trains and stuff, maybe they need to not be walking amongst us. But there is not one size fits all. And when you start talking to people and doing some investigative work, you find out why they are where they're at. And then if you know why they're there, we can reverse engineer it and get them back to where they need to be or where they want to be.
Not all of them, but it's like any other case you investigate. You at least do a proper investigation.
Right.
You're taking proper action. You're not doing the wrong thing that's just wasting
money. Now we're blindfolded and we're throwing a dart at a board, hoping that we hit something that works without doing the investigatory legwork that's required to make an informed decision on this person and their path forward. Listen, there are going to be some people that flat out refuse to get treatment, flat out refuse to and that comes back to you knowing that you don't have control over that. But at least let's do the homework so we can give that person the best opportunity and chance for success in changing their lives. And that doesn't mean being all touchy-feely. It just means doing your fucking job, figuring some shit out, and then taking the appropriate action.
Some of them, one I didn't bring up in the book, I debated whether to, hated cops. He had a colostomy bag, very young guy too, and he used to throw it. He would throw it at cops. He would throw it at walls. It was disgusting. And
that's shitty.
He grew up in Louisiana. His father was a Vietnam vet. He used to beat him with 2x4s. Kid was real traumatized. He hated cops. He hated me at first. And then I challenged myself again. I said, you know what? I'm going to use empathy and I'm going to resolve this problem. I'm going to treat it like an investigation. By the end, he was still doing drugs, but it's called managing your expectations. If you don't manage your expectations, you will fail every time. And that's where we fail.
That makes sense.
That's a burnout. So at the end, he was friendly. We actually kind of connected and bonded. He didn't cause any more problems in my beat. He said, I respect you and respecting me and treating me so well that he's not going to act out. He's not going to harass the station agents. He's not going to sleep on the floors. He's not going to shoot up dope in the little alcoves.
Right. It's a win.
Zero calls for service. Now, did I fix him? Did I get him off drugs?
No, but still a win. It's
Is
still a
he fighting the
win.
cops? Is he
Yeah.
throwing his colostomy bag on cops? No.
Yeah.
So I consider that, yeah, as you
It's
say,
still a win.
managing expectations.
That's important. That's
And the
important.
way, and to finish off on what you're saying, my epiphany, we have traffic units for traffic control, right? Like San Jose PD had 67 specialized units. We have specialized units because they address a specific problem for the area that they work. Their gang unit, I worked in the gang investigative unit, which was an intelligence unit. I did just a little stint with them. And then you had patrol guys who were two-man teams in uniform who would pounce on the gangbangers and pull guns off the street. Okay, two different types of problems had two gang units. Mental health, especially where I was at, was 90% to 95% of the problem, yet we didn't have a mental health unit. And I looked at other departments and I'm noticing how many departments out there have a specialized unit to address mental illness and addiction. Guys who are trained in it, guys who go to
Right.
programs, guys who are certified, guys who do walk-alongs with caseworkers to understand how to do this work.
Have you ever seen that documentary? Ernie Stevens, Crisis Cops, Ernie and Joe, Crisis Cops. It's an HBO
Yeah, I
documentary.
saw a little bit of it.
You need to connect with Ernie Stevens. He's he's in the driver's seat at a national level for mental illness and wellness and trying to address it at a very high level. I'll connect you guys. He's a good egg, man. He was part of the first mental health unit in his department. He was actually the founding member of it. So to your point,
that's what I did. I
yeah,
created a mental health unit.
talk to me. Talk to me about the creation of that.
Well, everything I kind of told you led up to that point that I realized this is the way to do it. I call it the hybrid officer. The co-response teams, I don't believe in. Maybe in rural areas, but in a city, and with the amount of calls for service, you can't expect to have a social worker come out there with every cop. Not only that, the social workers in San Francisco were not going into homes anymore because one got killed. They were scared to contact people on the street without a cop there. So the way I look at it, there's no magical string of words that you can put together that's going to make an irrational person who's suffering from mental illness or addiction all of a sudden become rational. Sure. They need meds. They need to be in a program. So I realized we need a unit. We need somebody who's going to be doing what I was doing, which was I learned to connect with the healthcare providers. I found caseworkers who were willing to work with cops, and I built my own team, multidisciplinary team, and it worked. I had a 2-to-1 success ratio, higher than anyone or anything else I saw in that city. I was getting people, that Japanese girl, back to Japan. The consulate gave us cookies and a thank you letter. I got an 89-year-old lady off the street after a year. She was already connected to services, but they thought it was fine for her to be homeless. Right. Got her into a program. But the mom kid, I got back to Britain, who was running around doing drugs in San Francisco, spending his entire inheritance. I took the concepts that I developed, I took the work, and I wrote out triage sheet, is what I called it, with different levels of contact and how to work with the system from a law enforcement perspective. And unfortunately, you have to have people who buy into that. Mm-hmm. Not everybody wants to be doing this kind of work. Not everybody wants to be a traffic cop. Not everybody wants to be a gang cop.
No doubt.
Not everybody wants to deal with the stinky homeless.
Right.
So,
but if we already have units in place that are identified that this is the problem that they're supposed to address, they need to be going about it the right way.
You just said it. You just took the words out of my mouth. That was exactly it right there. That's it. That's all you have to do. And if you get the it's willing participation. That's, like I said, people can't get out of their own way. San Francisco's a mess because they can't get past their ideologies. They can't get past not saying the word girl, not just rape, but I called one of them a girl. She was a young girl. Eric, that's demeaning. We don't call them girls. That's a woman. You're using demeaning language.
This is
Could you see cops ever having that argument?
We're getting we're getting trampled by the elephants and we're shooting at the mice, it's like
That's a good way to put it.
enough with the fucking pronouns and the I'm here to help people.
They're handing out crack pipes. So the
Yeah,
harm reduction, they take in the concept of harm reduction is great, but the problem is it's about reducing harm. But their concept of reducing harm is if I give them crack pipes, if I give them tinfoil to help them, that's helping them. No, that's not helping them. That's putting a bullet in
that's
the gun that's in their mouth.
insanity. That's insane. But that's their
Well,
ideology driving their actions.
it's the concept of the needle exchange program.
Yeah.
So I have doctors arguing with me. The needles I get because it started with HIV, the AIDS epidemic,
Right.
and it reduced the amount of disease that was being spread. But a crack pipe and tinfoil and a lighter and the things you need to smoke crack are not, that's a one size fits all concept. That's not doing the same thing as giving them a clean needle.
Yeah.
It,
It's we've lost our minds. We really have. We've lost our minds.
yep.
The trying to take a common sense of listen, nobody's saying, I've got this saying, Eric, things didn't get messed up overnight. So they certainly don't get fixed overnight, right? Like
Yep.
and unfortunately, and we see it with our own organizations, there's a 4-year cycle. And the 4-year cycle is actually a 2-year cycle because the first year is a honeymoon phase and the last year is trying to get reelected. So we've got 2 years to do real work during an election cycle.
Yep.
And most of these projects are 6-year projects.
Yeah.
We need a long-term forward-thinking perspective to address the problems that we have in our country, not just homelessness or addiction or mental health. And so, and because we're on a 2-year cycle, basically, of we do window dressing. We're supposed to replace the roof, but you know what? The roof needs to be replaced, but we're not going to replace the roof. We're just going to replace a few tiles, or we're going to paint it to make it look new. And unfortunately, the system, the way it is currently designed, is ideal for the superficial.
I can give you, I have a concept that I came up with, understanding how to fix. Remember, I told you about making people motivated.
Yeah.
And motivation and timing are the key to recovery. People have to be motivated, they have to want to do it, and you have to be ready to go when they're ready. San Francisco is 9 to 5. If you came to me at 6 o'clock in the evening and we're ready, people would, hey, because they come out at night. Hey, I'm ready to go. Well, sorry, I can't help you. You have to come back tomorrow and make an appointment.
This is Eric. I'm sorry I can't come to the phone right now. If you leave your name, number, and a brief message, I'll get back to you tomorrow at 8.
Yep, that's exactly what they do. And I used to yell at them. I said, do you understand what you're dealing with? Somebody shooting heroin in the middle of an alley is not going to be following through with an appointment 2 days from now. They don't even know what day it is. So motivation and timing is the key. You have to be ready. Motivation and timing. And that is what does it. When they come to you and they say, and they did, one guy jumped in my car, the patrol car.
Yeah.
He didn't care he was getting in with the cops. He said, Michael comes up to me, says, I'm ready to go right now. Holy shit. Dispatch, hold my calls. And I had great supervisors who allowed me to do this.
Right.
Took him right to the clinic to get his Suboxone.
Yeah.
That's how you do it, because they have to do the work. They have to get to that point where they're ready. And when they're ready, you have to be ready. That's why you need a unit. That's why who's there 24 hours? The cops.
Mm-hmm.
There's always going to be a cop there. There's always going to be somebody knocking on they would knock on the door, which drove my coworkers nuts. Hey, is Hofestien here?
Yeah.
I'm ready for something. I need help.
Right. That's awesome. No, I think unfortunately, we overthink things to the point of exhaustion, and you've seemed to found a direct path to listen. You're not going to save everybody. Not going, and there are some people that are beyond help, and the bottom line is that if you can create an environment for them and then do some real world investigating, you can be in a position when they're motivated with that timing to affect change. And like, listen, you're a bright guy. Um, the thing that's missing from other people in getting this done is the compassion and the
Yep.
caring. You just got to give a fuck about people.
Yep.
Right. And what happens, I think, Eric, we get overwhelmed, man. We see the door open and we see hundreds of people.
Yeah. I was one of them.
Pick one. Pick one out of that 100 and work on that one. And then when that one's done,
You know what you just did?
pick another one.
You talked about the special unit. That was exactly my plan on how to find officers who want to do this work.
Yeah.
We all have that one guy in our beat, one guy we feel a little bit of empathy for,
Right.
whether it's the guy propped up in the doorway in the 7-Eleven who we give $1 to when we pass him and he watches our patrol car for us.
Right.
Because he's not an anti-cop.
Make sure it still has 4 wheels on it when I get back.
You know, there's always that one guy you feel
Right.
a little bit of sympathy for.
He's sweeping up the parking lot at the 7-Eleven.
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
And you like him.
Yeah.
I tell the cops in the room, make his day a little bit better. Call his family and tell his family, because they don't have phones. Their phones get stolen. Tell the family he's still alive and he loves his kids and he's okay.
Yeah.
And the families cry their eyes out. They bond with you. And guess what? Sometimes that's all it takes for them to fix their problem. But that cop buys into it. And by the time I was done, many of the people I worked with who used to make fun of me, Hofstein's hotline.
Listen, they can make fun of you for other reasons.
No, they were helping me. I was getting calls on my days off.
Sure.
Hey, I got this girl with a kid sitting here on the sidewalk. What can I give? I want to give her something. I can't just let her be on the street with a child.
Right. How do I help her? Right. Yeah.
And the homeless community did the work for me. It's a community.
Yeah.
So they knew what I did, and they would come up to me. Who are you looking for today, Hofstein? First, it was no snitching. We don't talk to the cops.
Right.
Then it was, who are you looking for today? Who can we help you find? And I would tell them, she had a bad time. Somebody needs to watch her tonight if she shoots up, because she's going to die. She went through something bad.
Right.
You just got assaulted. And they would say, we spent the whole night with her. We watched her. We protected her.
Right.
We kept people away. And what ends up happening is just like any other teamwork, the homeless community helped me do my job better. So I was, at first, like you said, the door opened. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do with thousands of people? But as I started doing the work started doing the work itself. It started feeding itself. And it got easier to do. More cops are buying into it. But like you said, then I retired. And it all went to hell. Yeah. It's gone. It's done. It's over.
Well, I think maybe the next chapter involves some consulting and and going to agencies that are serious about making a difference, and you helping them and showing them how to start a successful program. I'm gonna put all your contact information in the show notes, Eric. We're gonna have you back, man, because there's so much more to talk about here. Do me this favor. If you could, I've got, a guy or girl, they're on patrol, they're on their way home, they're going into work. You just describe that person in their zone, right? That they see every day, and they're on the fringe. And if you could speak to that individual officer, what would be something that you could share with them, that you'd like to say to them before we wrap this up?
Never sacrifice officer safety. One, I was an FTO training officer, so that's always a big one with me, is always protect yourself. I even had some of the homeless who would tell me, hey, when I'm off my medication, I'm dangerous. Be careful around me. So just because you know someone or have a good bond, never sacrifice your officer safety.
Paramount.
But if you get that hint, that gut feeling that there's something redeemable about something different. That's how I started finding my cases, was the one who wouldn't say, fuck you, fuck off, I hate the police. The one who came down to me and said, I wasn't always a piece of shit, even though I was treating them like shit.
Mm.
That's somebody who maybe dig a little bit deeper. And some of my best cases that I solved, including one at BART, a big financial, I saved BART thousands of dollars on a scam on their machines because a couple of the homeless kids came to me and helped me figure out who was doing it. And I found them and I knew who it was. It was somebody I had worked with. And I said, look, I could put you in jail. You can go to prison. They weren't going to file the case anyway, but I lied a little bit. Hey, you can end up going to prison or you can knock it off. They knocked it off. Saved BART thousands of dollars of this scam they were doing with the back of the magnetic strips. So you can actually make your job easier. You can make your job better. And if there's anybody likely to jump in and help you if you're in the middle of a fight, it's going to be somebody who doesn't look at you as motherfucking cops.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Hofestien. Eric, man, thanks for your time. You really I love your perspective on how we get better at dealing with this problem. And I definitely want to have you back. So we'll have to talk and clear your calendar. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Thank you.